So if this Agile thing's been around for a while, and it's all about, staying current and being sort of at the front edge of using technology, why do we need to look back at the origins? It's a fair question. Let's unpack that a bit together. For many of you in the industry today, you might have been sort of brought up on technology and don't know that there was a different way or is a different way of developing software. And so it's worth looking back and sort of seeing where we came from to sort of understand how we can actually move to the next state after whatever the next thing in Agile is. This is a constantly moving, constantly growing field. We never really arrive. Congratulations for being in a field you're going to have to continually learn. Anyway, let's look back. So as far back as the 1940s, a man by the name of Taiichi Ohno introduced this concept of Kanban. Kanban was used in the manufacturing industry and really was meant to focus on how work flows through a manufacturing plant. And what Kanban does is sort of give us a signal board or signal for work that it's time to pull work through the system, through the next phase of the system, next stage of the system. But it was so much more than that. It wasn't just like a signal for work. It was improving quality at the workstation. Any worker on the assembly line could stop the assembly line if there was a quality problem, fix it before firing up the assembly line. We didn't let problems move to the sort of quality assurance group to fix. So this idea of Kanban comes about again in the 1940s. Did you know that Agile was used in the 1950s by NASA? Listen to this quote. Project Mercury ran with very short half-day iterations that were time-boxed. The development team conducted a technical review of all changes and, interestingly, applied extreme programming techniques such as test-first development. This was written in 1957, iterative development on NASA's Project Mercury. Who knew? Kind of just fast forward a bit into the 60s and 70s, and really this software development world is coming about. And projects had been run for quite some time using what's called the waterfall method. Winston Royce introduced this construct of waterfall, and since that's how projects were run and organizations were good at running projects, we applied that to software development. Now the waterfall method is an interesting approach when you can plan things out, when there's a lot of predictability and repeatability and not much will change, and you can sort of know the future will look a lot like today, then waterfall and predictive sort of delivery is great. Unfortunately, that doesn't describe software development at all. In fact, I'll take all the opposite of what I just said. That's like software development, And so waterfall came about in the 70s and was applied to just sort of how we built things. I mean, I remember in the 80s when I got my first computer. 80s, by the way, best decade for music ever. I remember in the 80s, getting a chance to get to look at a personal computer and building with my first software application at the time. Well, along comes Ken Schwaber and Jeff Sutherland, and they bring us this idea of Scrum right about 1995 or so. And XP is introduced right around that same time too, from Kent Beck. So this is pre-2000s, right? Computers are just taking off. The speed of change is really improving. And then in the 2000s, we get the Agile Manifesto, and Scrum is really starting to take off and be adopted as the method for Agile method for delivering software. Sure, XP is happening, and Kanban is even being used for software development. And then the lean principles sort of get codified in this book by Mary and Tom Poppendieck called Lean Software Engineering. And we see that we can apply lean principles to software development. Well, keep moving forward through 2000s and into 2010, and we're introduced to scaling this idea of Agile. We've sort of bought in that Agile is the method for delivering software, and now we're going to scale it. And we see things like SAFe, come onto the marketplace, and large-scale Scrum, and sort of then continuing to advance from there to where we are today, where we've got like automated test-driven development, where test-driven development was great in extreme programming. We're automating those things. We're using machine learning to help us understand and build software faster. We're still based on, interestingly, a lot of the techniques that Taiichi Ohno introduced in the 1940s. So again, it's important to sort of understand where we came from so that we can keep looking at where we can go. A little bit there about the origins of Agile.